Okay, so today we're diving into a story that really, gets at this whole grifter or gifted question.
Yeah,
You sent us a ton of material on Andrew Cuomo,
yeah.
news articles, legal documents, even personal accounts. And it seems like you guys are really trying to figure out, if this guy was the real deal.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
a genuine leader or just a master manipulator.
It's a fascinating case study, isn't it?
It is.
Because for a while there,
Yeah.
Cuomo was like a political rock star. I mean, he came from this incredibly powerful political family.
Right, his father.
His father was a three-term governor of New York,
Exactly. Yeah.
and he kind of built on that legacy,
Yeah.
projecting this strength and decisiveness, especially during like the early days of COVID.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't turn on the news without seeing him, right?
Exactly.
He's given these daily
His
briefings,
daily briefing.
demanding more ventilators,
Uh-huh.
really presenting himself as a man of action.
Exactly. And that image, that persona really resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, he was seen as a strong leader at a time when everybody was looking for that
Absolutely.
in a time of crisis.
Yeah.
But even then, like if you look closely, there were some hints that maybe things weren't quite as they seemed.
Okay, what kind of hints are we talking about?
Oh, for example, there were those stories about his administration potentially undercounting nursing home deaths during the pandemic.
Right, right.
And this was happening at the same time he was demanding those ventilators,
Uh-huh.
projecting this image of being on top of the situation.
Right.
So you start to wonder, was this a case of prioritizing image over accuracy?
That's a really good point. And it wasn't just the nursing home data either.
No.
There were already rumblings about his management style even before the pandemic.
Yeah.
People described him as abrasive, controlling,
Right.
even bullying at times.
Right. There were whispers about a toxic work environment within his administration.
Oh, for sure.
So was this just, the pressure of the job,
Yeah.
the tough decisions a leader has to make, or was it a sign of something deeper?
A pattern of behavior that would eventually catch up to him?
And catch up to him it did, because then came the sexual harassment allegations.
Right.
And it wasn't just one or two accusations. It was a
Right.
wave of them.
It was multiple women came forward sharing their stories of unwanted advances,
Yeah.
inappropriate comments, and just a general feeling of being unsafe and uncomfortable around him.
Right.
And
Yeah.
these weren't just anonymous rumors.
Right.
These women put their names and faces to their accusations.
People like Charlotte Bennett, who work as his aide,
Right.
she described Cuomo asking deeply personal questions about her sex life,
Yeah.
suggesting that he was lonely and wanted to be touched.
Wow.
That's pretty disturbing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there was Lindsay Boylan, another former aide,
Yeah.
who detailed years of unwanted advances and inappropriate behavior, even alleging that he kissed her on the lips without her consent.
Wow. It's hard to imagine someone in his position with so much power thinking that that kind of behavior was acceptable at all.
It's pretty shocking.
And it's important to note that the allegations weren't just based on individual accounts.
All right.
There was an official investigation led by the New York Attorney General, which found that Cuomo had sexually harassed multiple women, creating a hostile work environment. I mean, the report was incredibly damning.
Oh, yeah.
It corroborated the accuser's stories,
Right.
really painted a picture of a man who used his position of power
Uh-huh.
to intimidate and harass women. And this, of course, created a huge political firestorm.
Oh, yeah. I remember it was all over the news. Calls
Yeah.
for his resignation were coming from everywhere, Democrats and Republicans alike.
Yeah.
There were even talks of impeachment.
Exactly. The pressure was immense. I mean, he
Yeah.
was facing potential criminal charges.
Right.
His own party was turning against him.
Uh-huh.
The public was losing faith. I mean, it seemed like it was only a matter of time before he'd be forced to step down.
And he did eventually resign.
Right.
But even then, it wasn't exactly a clean break.
No, not at all. He stepped down, but he never fully admitted to any wrongdoing. He maintained that he, never intentionally made anyone uncomfortable, and even claimed that he was a victim of cancel culture,
Oh, wow.
suggesting he was being held to an unfair standard.
So he was basically saying, I'm resigning, but I didn't do anything wrong.
Essentially, yeah. His defense seemed to focus more on discrediting the allegations and portraying himself as a victim of political maneuvering than on actually taking responsibility for his actions.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold strategy,
Yeah.
especially given the weight of the evidence against him.
yeah.
Do you think he genuinely believed he was innocent, or was it more about trying to salvage what was left of his reputation?
That's a tough question to answer. I mean, it's possible that he truly believed his actions were misconstrued or exaggerated, or maybe it was a calculated move to protect his legacy, to try and control the narrative surrounding his downfall.
Either way, It's a pretty fascinating look into how someone with that much power can react when they're finally held accountable for their actions. But resigning doesn't mean disappearing, right? What's he been up to since leaving office? Has he just faded into the background?
Not exactly. I mean, he's remained somewhat in the public eye. He wrote a book defending his actions,
Okay.
gave a few interviews,
Uh-huh.
and even surprisingly joined Benjamin Netanyahu's legal team,
Really?
helping to defend him against corruption charges.
Netanyahu, that's unexpected to say the least.
It certainly raised some eyebrows. I
Yeah.
mean, some people saw it as a cynical attempt to rehabilitate his image by aligning himself with another controversial figure.
Right.
Others viewed it as a genuine desire to continue working in public service, even if on a very different stage.
It's an interesting choice, that's for sure. I guess it goes back to the question we started with. Is he truly gifted someone who believes in his ability to make a difference? Or is he a grifter always looking for an angle, a way to stay relevant and maintain a level of power?
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting because you have these conflicting narratives.
Now.
On the one hand, you have the Cuomo, who was praised for his leadership during the pandemic,
Right.
who projected strength and compassion. On the other hand, you have the Cuomo, who was accused of serious misconduct,
Right.
who was described as being abusive and manipulative.
So how do we reconcile those two sides? How
Yeah.
do we make sense of this complex and contradictory figure?
Yeah.
I mean, was he ultimately a force for good, someone who achieved great things despite his flaws? Or was it all just a facade, a carefully constructed image designed to hide a darker reality?
That's the question we're left with, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's not an easy one to answer. I think it requires us to look beyond the surface,
right.
to consider the motivations behind his actions, and to weigh the good he accomplished against the harm he may have caused.
It also makes you think about how we as a society judge our leaders. Do we focus solely on their accomplishments, their public persona, their ability to connect with us on an emotional level? Or do we hold them accountable for their flaws, their missteps, their potential abuses of power?
And how much weight do we give to charisma?
Right.
Because Cuomo was undeniably charismatic.
He was.
He had this ability to command a room, to
Mhm.
connect with people, to inspire them. But charisma can also be a powerful tool for manipulation.
It's like that old saying, never mistake charm for character. But how do you tell the difference? Where's the line between a truly visionary leader and a skilled con artist?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer.
Right,
No foolproof formula.
right.
But I think there are some things we can look for.
Like, what are some red flags that might suggest that someone is more interested in self-promotion than in public service?
Well, one thing is a pattern of behavior that prioritizes image over substance,
Okay.
like we see with Cuomo and how he handled the nursing home data,
Yeah.
potentially downplaying the severity of the situation to protect his image.
Mhm.
It's about looking beyond the carefully crafted persona and seeing if their actions consistently match their words.
So it's not just about what they say, but what they do, how they handle challenges, especially when they think no one is watching.
Exactly. Another red flag is a lack of accountability.
Okay.
A true leader takes responsibility for their mistakes, learns from them, makes amends. A con artist, on the other hand, will deflect, blame, make excuses, refuse to acknowledge any wrongdoing.
And we saw that with Cuomo, right? Even when he resigned, he never truly admitted fault. He blamed cancel culture, the media, anyone but himself.
Right. It's that unwillingness to face the consequences of their actions that can be a real warning sign.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the issue of exploiting others for personal gain.
Right.
Visionaries empower those around them.
Uh-huh.
Con artists use people as stepping stones, discarding them once they've served their purpose.
It makes you wonder if the people closest to these powerful figures, their advisors, their staff, they must have some insight into their true character.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But often those closest are caught in a web of loyalty, ambition, and fear.
Right.
They may see the cracks in the facade, but they're also incentivized to maintain the image to protect the person in power.
It's like they're trapped in this system that rewards silence and complicity. And by the time they speak up, the damage has already been done. It's a disturbing thought,
Yeah.
but it really speaks to the seductive nature of power and how easily it can corrupt even those with good intentions.
And that's why it's so important to be discerning,
Yeah.
to look beyond the charm, the rhetoric, the promises, and really examine the track record, the actions, the impact on others. Because in a world where charisma and controversy often go hand in hand, separating the true visionaries from the skilled manipulators is crucial now more than ever.
It's a reminder to stay vigilant, to ask tough questions, to not be swayed by appearances alone, It's about looking beyond the surface and considering the bigger picture, the long-term consequences.
And perhaps most importantly, it's about remembering that even the most charismatic, the most successful, the most powerful individuals are still human.
Right.
They are capable of both great and terrible things.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide who we believe and who we choose to follow and what kind of world we want to create.
So there you have it, Andrew Cuomo, grifter or gifted. We've examined the evidence, explored the different perspectives, and it's clear there are no easy answers. What do you think? Share your thoughts on social media using hashtag grifter or gifted. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the lives and legacies of today's most fascinating and controversial figures